Hi. So today, I wanted to kind of give you a brief summary before I started with any of the questions regarding the Israel and Palestine's conflict that I did some research over. So I just wanted to summarize the first part before I got into any of the detail for you. So the conflict was between Israel and the Palestinians, and it was one of the largest running and most violent distributes in the world. It origin backs to greater than a century ago when it happened, so it has happened a while ago, but there still is current news today and the territory that Israel has regarding the dispute that happened over a century ago, but they're still have updated stuff to dating back to today. Um, so there was many wars between Israel and Arab nations, and consequences were mostly a dispute regarding the land borders and the rights, and how everyone felt between that, and how they kind of felt toward the differences that each Israel and Palestinians had. So Britain took over the area of Palestine during World War One, and that was following the Ottoman Empire, which is also part of the Middle East. And that tensions between the Jewish and Arab populations were dependent on the UK agreement to the principle established of the nation's home, which is the Palestine or the home for the Palestine, which is the Jewish people. Um, and then, kind of moving forward just a little bit more, the Jews did have a historical link to the land, which the Palestine Arabs also had claimed dating back to centuries and opposed the move. Um, and then the dominant group was Israel, and then the subborder group was the Palestinians. And because of this, kind of to piggyback off of this, the majority of the Jews had to actually flee Europe. So about 30% was the only part that was left, making them the subgroup of the two. Um, and this was really based on just how the land and what they kind of had gotten once the conflict had already arose. So in the social stratification between the two, Israel was a very, very poor, under poverty line between the two. Um, it kind of mentioned in some of the links, Israel was below poverty line for a long time. Below poverty is what they call a dialect in the social stratification, kind of groupings, if you call. So that's below what the lowest one is. And then the Palestinians were the Shrudas, and this they were poor, but they weren't as poor as the Israels were, and so that kind of helped them as a step above the Israels, I guess you could call it. And they just days after the the Israels declared their independence, um, they they were surrounded by a bunch. Then there became a war that happened, um, and which is called the Six-Day War. It changed boundaries between the Middle East, and it had very major consequences through the Palestinians. And this is where the violence had started. So the main thing that was violated during this conflict was the international humanitarian law. This was the most that was violated, and also a lot of deaths had arose between the two once the Six-Day War had started. Um, and so this leads me to my next point, which is unlawful killings. This unlawfulness, the killings did go between the two as they were during the Six-Day War. Um, and they captured many in the thing, and about 1 million um, Palestinians were under Israel's control. So this means that Israel took control of the Palestinians, making them the dominant group, and taking control of what they had, but also what they didn't have. Israel kind of took over the majority of it for them. Um, and then the last thing I kind of wanted to touch on was the movement. So the main thing out of this was each individual group, they kind of had different sides regarding, just because the land was different and the borders. I think the very big difference between the two groups, as they were kind of battling together, was their rights. They didn't believe this was equal for both of them, which today you will see in the newest articles that Israel does have the majority of the land on a opposing side to the Palestinians. They did. They do not have much of the land. Israel does have the majority, which is why the movement is for freedom. So freedom, they did try and get, which Israel did capture, but Palestinians were trying to capture it as well. But Israel did capture it from them in their movement. And so now the status, so the 6 Day War kind of banked off of the West Bank. So now the land between Israel and the Jordan River is mainly home to all the Palestinians now. That's the majority of it. And now the land amongst the East Jerusalem and Gaza is part of the widely known occupied Palestine territories. So this is the land that they kind of captured, was around the West Bank, that the Israel did not capture. The Israel captured the other bank, and then the Palestinians captured the bank which is on the west side. And Israel still has the majority of the control, but the West Bank is kind of where the Palestinians are, and they kind of have a little bit more control over that, just since they kind of claimed the land rather than Israel claiming the majority of the other land. But like I said, Israel does claim the majority of it today. They did work together in some ways to kind of have equality between the two, but there still is a large weight to the Israel rather than the Palestinians today. And yes, I think that was it. So thank you.